to the Grand Line isn't too far off, but I think there's a mistake on the map.
Welcome everyone to my latest action figure review, as I have the Bandai Tamashii SE Figuarts, the One Piece Nami, based on the Netflix live action series, which of course is the third character released in this line, following Luffy and Zoro, which we saw earlier this year. In terms of the packaging, it uses the same theme with the nice background of the sunset, the usual titles, logos and stickers as well. Of course, Netflix One Piece Nami shown at the front, and it's always nice to have a real shot of the character as well. And then on the side we have the titles, once again Netflix One Piece, with a shot of the figure itself. On the other side it wraps all the way around, we have the photo of the Going Merry ship, once again Netflix One Piece. And here's a look at the top of the box as well as the bottom, and at the back we have the figure in different poses. So in terms of the size of the box, it is kind of in the middle in comparison with the Luffy, which had the least accessories, and of course it's slightly smaller than the Zoro one, which had the most weapons. So now we have a nice trio of the three characters from the live action series. So inside we have the same blue background as the previous two, as well as the instruction manual to show you how to put on the accessories. And here is a full look at the Nami figure inside its packaging. So here is the first look at the Nami figure taken out of its packaging, and it's nice to finally see the figure in person to fully judge and compare it with the promotional photos. As you know, when Tamashii first made the announcement, a lot of people were not too pleased, in particular with the face sculpt, kind of labeling this with all kinds of names, making all kinds of jokes. But when I see this in person, it's definitely not as bad. It does have a decent likeness, it does have that kind of realism to it, and it does resemble the actress Emily Rudd. Of course, it's always going to be difficult to have it 100% spot on when you have a beautiful lady, and of course when you're comparing it with a live action version rather than the anime one. And kind of like Luffy and Zoro, of course, this is solely going to be based on the Netflix show, so I'm not going to compare it with in any way or form compared to the anime version. So when I see this in person, of course, it's actually a very good look. I think they've gone for the right choice of attire. Of course, we have the white t-shirt with the blue stripes and the orange skirt. And yeah, this is the right one they've gone for because it's kind of the main one towards the end of the series. She wore the pink color, the green colors, still nice looks, but of course this is probably the best one to go with Luffy and Zoro. So I'm pretty sure Tamashii used the same scanning technique for all three characters, and Luffy turned out to be pretty decent, Zoro was excellent. Zoro is probably the best out of all three of them. So the Nami one is not going to be a terrible one if they've used the same kind of scanning machine or scanning kind of computer technology. So yeah, it's definitely a decent likeness when you see this in person. One thing I'll have to say is the hair sculpt isn't going to be the best, especially with the hairstyle. I think it's got a good sculpt, but I just feel that the colors are a bit too bright for the ginger orange. It could be toned down slightly, but the rest of it I do like it. I think the way they shaped the t-shirt and of course the skirt, we have the rings to represent the oranges, and then of course we have the burgundy boots. So first impressions, I do like it. Of course it's not going to be perfect, but it's definitely a nice one to add into the collection. Moving on to the accessories, let's start off with the alternative hands. So in total there are 5 different sets, including the ones out of the box. So we have the closed-fisted hands, although it's not the standard ones. It does kind of have the thumbs up, but you can use it for, of course, those punching poses, which I'm sure Nami does throw a few. So it's not the standard closed fist, but it is one that's very similar. So for the first set of alternative hands, we have a pair of standard hands with the open palms, and this can be used for a variety, so it kind of does have that versatility about them. So when she's giving a speech, or she's running, or in a natural pose, or even if she's using one of the accessories on one hand, you can leave the other one in a natural look. The next pair of hands we're going to take a look at is the ones to hold on to the accessories. So this is the pair to, of course, hold on to the map, which is included. So Nami is the navigator of the team, so they've included this piece in kind of this goldish color, and it's actually a decent sculpt. There's not much to it other than just being a kind of like a pole, and then you just hold it on to the hands, and this could of course be used on kind of both sides depending on which one you prefer. So yeah, it's nice to include these kind of accessories because I feel that the Luffy one was kind of missing it. And yeah, this is just an extra pose you can do, and even though it doesn't really do much in terms of the display, I think it does definitely enhance on it. So yeah, this is the map included. For the fourth set of hands, we have another pair to hold on to the different accessories, and this time it is for her main weapon, so the rod or staff, and this can be once again placed on both the hands. So of course it is a very long one, and as you can see, pretty solid piece, and this of course can be easily placed onto either side of the hands. So of course Nami can be placed into many dynamic poses, especially for the fighting ones, and this is probably the main one I'm going to use, as it's probably the most exciting accessory. And for the fifth and final pair of hands, we have another pair to hold on to the accessory, and this is a bonus one which I believe wasn't even shown in the promos, and that is the flower type, which is the pinwheel, and this once again can be attached to both sides of either hand. And I think this is a nice touch to include this, because it kind of shows the different side to Nami, rather than of course holding on to the rod for the fighting poses or the map. So it kind of gives off a different atmosphere if you want, and it's always a nice touch to have more accessories. As for an alternative head sculpt or even a different faceplate, unfortunately they have not included any for this Nami figure. Normally Tamashinations are very consistent. If you include it in your current figures in this line, you should really do the same for the latest release. And that is because all the budget has in fact gone into a new Luffy head sculpt as well as Zoro, and these really fixed the issues in the first release. And I just wish they included these head sculpts already in the first one. When I did the reviews, I was really surprised to not see a laughing head sculpt for Luffy, especially as you can see compared to the original ones. And then for Zoro, of course, it is kind of a bonus. You have the sword in the mouth, which was not removable, and then we have the standard head sculpt, which is my favorite. So really important, I guess, for Luffy especially. So we will take a closer look at that. But I wish they included one for Nami. Maybe in the future, if they release a Usopp or Sanji, they'll fix the same issue and include a head sculpt for her. So here is another closer look at the two head sculpts included once again with Luffy and Zoro. Of course, for Zoro, I think the likeness is spot on, kind of like the original one. And it's nice to switch up the displays without the sword in the mouth. For Luffy, the head sculpt isn't the best, but I can kind of see the resemblance. It's okay, you can't kind of have it both ways. I really wanted that laughing head sculpt, so here we have it. So you can switch out the faceplate for the one with the straw hat, which I'm going to do because that's the main look for Luffy. And here is that Luffy faceplate placed onto the head sculpt with the straw hat, which in my opinion does really upgrade the display for this figure, and it's probably the main look I will use. And now let's test out the articulation, so the movement of the Nami figure, starting off with the head sculpt. So it can turn left and right, no problems. It does have a full 360 spin, and with the hairstyle as well, it doesn't really get in the way. Moving it side to side, you can see it does work. Of course, it kind of stops where the hairstyle is. And then moving it downwards, it's also got a very good motion. And then upwards, probably not so much due to the hairstyle, or maybe it's just the way the ball joint is done. Okay, it doesn't actually move backwards that much, but downwards is okay, and then it has a good rotation around the head sculpt, and the neck kind of moves with it, although very limited. And then for the arms, we can stretch them side to side, no problems. It's in fact very smooth, and then you can move it forwards, upwards, backwards, rotates all the way around very smoothly. And this is how far the arms go back, which is also very good. And then inwards. And then for the arm rotation, it does a full arm rotation, and also the part that's separate from the t-shirt, you can see also has a good rotation on the biceps. And we also have the elbow bend as expected. And then for the hands, there is rotation, and I expect there to be a hinge, which it does, although it's very slight. And then for the body, of course, it does have rotation, very good. In fact, it does 360 spin if you want. In terms of moving it backwards, you can see it's very limited, and downwards as well, sideways, so not much, it's mostly a rotation. And then for the waist area, it's the same, it's kind of a rotation that goes all the way around if you want, but in terms of side to side, you can't see much. And in terms of a body crunch, you can see it goes downwards this much, and then backwards not so much. So you can detach the body from the legs, And just to show you inside, of course, it's kind of like separate pieces of the skirt. And yeah, that's why it doesn't have that much of a body crunch. And then for the legs, of course, which is also good movement, you can see even though there's the skirt, it doesn't really get in the way. They've used kind of like a rubber material, so you can kick forwards and backwards. And then of course it does the splits, which is good. And then we have the full leg rotation, kind of the thigh turn, although it's only minimal. And then we have the knee bend, which goes quite far back. And then for the boots, of course, there's good rotation on the feet, and also hinge to turn side to side, and then there's also the toe hinge. So for the articulation, of course, I don't expect Nami to be in some crazy dynamic poses, so it's probably going to do most of the decent ones, apart from the body, which doesn't really have a backwards crunch. The rest of it is actually okay. So now for the size comparison, so here it is next to the SH Figuarts Netflix live action One Piece line with Luffy and Zoro, which looks really nice together as a display. I really like the contrast of the colors, they really pop. And of course, sometimes 3 is the maximum they do for a line, but I do want to see Usopp and Sanji as well, just to complete the team for season 1. And here it is next to some anime characters with the SH Figuarts One Piece Romance Storm Luffy, as well as the Dragon Ball Z Goku. And here it is next to some more SH Figuarts from the One Piece line, the Raidon Onigashima Zoro, as well as Sanji. And here it is next to some superheroes from the Mafex line with Superman from Zack Snyder's Justice League, as well as Captain America from Captain America the Winter Soldier. And here it is next to 2 other popular lines with the Marvel Legends Spider-Man No Way Home MJ, as well as the Jada Toy Street Fighter Chun-Li. So now for my final thoughts on the Netflix series Nami for SH Figuarts. So anytime there's a new figure added into a current line, this is already a bonus. I do feel the reason you are getting this is because you already have Luffy and Zoro in the collection. I don't see any other reason for solely picking on this one unless you want to pair it up with the anime versions. It is part of a very successful series, which is why I do recommend it if you enjoy the show. As a figure, it's not too bad. I feel the overall likeness is there. It's never perfect with a live action character. There could be some improvements with the paint on the hairstyle, and there's still arguments about the face sculpts, but it's decent in terms of the sculpts, the accessories included. We do have a nice range with the rod, the map, the pinwheel, so you can get this figure in many different poses, and not many Figuarts do have free accessories. However, I am disappointed no alternative hair sculpt was included, but we got the fixes for both Luffy and Zoro. So I do like this figure, I like what's being offered, and it does set up nicely for a One Piece display. So maybe in the future we could see the full team with Usopp and Sanji included as well, and maybe then we'll see the alternative head sculpt. So I'm going to give this a 7 out of 10 as it's slightly above Luffy, which I gave a 6, and just below Zoro, who got an 8, so this kind of sits in the middle. Check out my One Piece Netflix reviews of Luffy and Zoro if you haven't already, as well as my latest Romance Storm version of Luffy, as well as its comparison with the Raidon Onigashima version with the links below. Thanks for watching and hope to see you next time.